The text from Ethan made my stomach clench. Can't wait to hear about all your pro bono cases defending criminals, sis. Maybe you'll finally admit law school was wasted on you. I'm Olivia, and my younger brother has always had a knack for getting under my skin. The family reunion invitation sat on my granite countertop like a ticking time bomb. Mom's elegant handwriting promised an evening of family bonding and celebration. What it should have said was, passive-aggressive comments and judgment included. You could always cancel, Cameron suggested, sliding a fresh coffee across my desk. My colleague and closest friend at the firm had endured years of my family drama stories. And give Ethan the satisfaction? Never. I took a sip of the coffee, savoring its bitter warmth. Besides, Mom would never forgive me. You could just tell them the truth, he said, leaning against my office doorframe. Partner at Thompson, Campbell and Associates isn't exactly something to be ashamed of. I shook my head, watching the city lights flicker to life outside my corner office window. They think I'm still a public defender because that's what Ethan tells everyone. He's convinced himself that's all I'll ever be. The truth was more complicated. Yes, I'd started as a public defender, and I was damn proud of that work. But 5 years ago, Victoria Campbell had seen something in me during a high-profile case. Now, at 35, I was the youngest partner in the firm's history. Not that my family knew any of this. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Honey, please try to keep the peace tomorrow. Your brother's going through a lot right now. Going through a lot? I scoffed, showing Cameron the message. He's going through a divorce because he couldn't keep his hands off his secretary. That's hardly a tragedy. Speaking of which, Cameron's expression turned serious. Have you heard who's handling his wife's case? Before I could answer, my assistant Emma poked her head in. Miss Sutton, your mother's here. Eleanor swept into my office like a perfectly coiffed hurricane, her designer handbag swinging. Olivia, darling, I thought we could have lunch before tomorrow's party. I watched Cameron make a strategic retreat, mouthing good luck as he disappeared. Eleanor, I'm working. You can't just show up in that tiny public defender office you're always talking about. She glanced around my obviously luxurious office with confusion. This seems different. I'm covering for a friend. I lied smoothly, the same excuse I'd used for years. What's really going on? She sank into one of my client chairs, her perfectly maintained facade cracking slightly. It's your brother. This divorce, it's going to be ugly. Sophia's hired some high-powered firm. Has she? I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. Thompson, Campbell, something or other. Sharks, apparently. Eleanor wrung her hands. Ethan's beside himself. He says they'll take everything. I bit back a laugh. If she only knew. Maybe he should have thought about that before sleeping with his 24-year-old secretary, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Olivia, he made a mistake. We all make mistakes. She reached across my desk, patting my hand. Just be gentle with him tomorrow. He's been saying some things about you. I know, but he's hurting. The irony was almost too much to bear. Tomorrow night at our family reunion, Ethan would undoubtedly mock my career choices again. He'd make snide comments about public defenders and wasted potential, completely unaware that on Monday morning, I'd be sitting across from him in a conference room as opposing counsel's partner. I'll behave if he does, I promised, knowing full well what was coming. Mom stood, smoothing her designer dress. That's all I ask. And darling, maybe wear something a little more professional tomorrow? That navy suit you used to have was nice. I glanced down at my Armani pantsuit and Louboutin heels, easily worth more than what Ethan made in a month. I'll see what I can find. After she left, I pulled up Ethan's divorce file on my computer. There it was in black and white. Sophia Evans versus Ethan Sutton. Primary counsel, Victoria Campbell. Partner in charge, Olivia Sutton. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Ethan. Hope you're ready for tomorrow, sis. Brought some big news to share. Time to show everyone what real success looks like. I smiled, thinking about Monday morning's meeting. Oh, Ethan. I whispered to my empty office. You have no idea. 5 years earlier, I sat across from Victoria Campbell in a cramped courthouse hallway, my public defender badge feeling like a target on my chest. "You made quite an impression in there," she said, studying me with sharp eyes. Not many lawyers would have caught that inconsistency in the prosecution's evidence. I clutched my worn briefcase tighter. "Just doing my job." "Your job?" Victoria laughed. "You dismantled the DA's entire case. My client was ready to plead guilty until you proved his innocence. That case had been my breakthrough. A young man wrongly accused of armed robbery, his life hanging by a thread. I'd spent weeks piecing together security footage proving he'd been across town when the crime occurred. I believe in being thorough," I said, standing to leave. "Wait." Victoria handed me her business card. "Come see me next week. I think you're wasting your talent here." That memory played through my mind as I walked into the family reunion, fashionably late. The country club's banquet room buzzed with conversation, crystal glasses clinking as relatives mingled. "There's my favorite failure." Ethan's voice boomed across the room. He was already 3 drinks in, his designer suit slightly rumpled. "Still saving the world one criminal at a time?" "Ethan," I nodded coolly, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. "You know," he continued, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear, "I just closed a 7-figure deal last week. Meanwhile, my big sister's probably still making what? 40 grand a year." Our cousin Isabella winced. "Ethan, maybe we should." No, let's hear about Olivia's noble sacrifice," he interrupted. "Tell us, sis, how many drug dealers did you keep out of jail this month?" I took a deliberate sip of champagne. "Actually, I've moved on from criminal defense." "Oh." His eyebrows shot up. Finally admitted defeat. Before I could respond, Mom appeared between us. "Children, please." "Ethan, honey, maybe you should slow down on the drinks." "I'm celebrating, Mom." He threw an arm around her shoulders. "Did you tell her my news about the merger?" "I was just about to," Eleanor said, shooting me a warning look. "Ethan's company is merging with." A commotion near the entrance cut her off. Heads turned as Cameron burst into the room, tablet in hand. He caught my eye and gestured urgently. "Excuse me," I murmured, extracting myself from the family circle. In the hallway, Cameron thrust the tablet at me. "You need to see this." The headline made my blood run cold. Tech CEO Ethan Sutton's divorce takes ugly turn. Insider trading allegations surface. "It just broke," Cameron said quietly. "Sophia's claiming she has evidence he was trading on non-public information." Through the banquet room doors, I could hear Ethan's loud laughter. "The merger is going to make us millions." To success. "This changes everything," I said, scanning the article. "If these allegations are true." "That's not all." Cameron swiped to another page. "Look who's representing him." Julian Thompson's name jumped out at me. The same Julian Thompson who tried to poach my biggest client last year, who dismissed me as that public defender playing at corporate law. "Perfect," I muttered. "Just perfect." My phone vibrated. Victoria calling. I answered on the first ring. "Tell me you've seen the news," she said without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. The insider trading allegations change everything." She finished my thought. "Listen, Olivia, I know he's your brother, but this case just got a lot bigger. If you want to recuse yourself." "No," my voice was firm. "I'm staying on." Through the doors, I could hear Ethan holding court. "My sister?" "Oh, she means well, but some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. Public defenders are important, I guess, but let's be honest. It's where lawyers go when they can't hack it in the real world." Cameron touched my arm. "You okay?" I handed him back the tablet, straightening my shoulders. "You know what the funny thing is? 5 years ago, when Victoria offered me the job, Ethan told me I'd never survive in corporate law. Said I didn't have the killer instinct. And now." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Eleanor. "Monday morning's meeting. Should be interesting." "Speaking of which," Cameron grinned. "What are you going to wear?" "Something expensive," I said, pushing open the banquet room doors. "Very, very expensive." Ethan's voice carried across the room. "To my incredible success. And to my sister, bless her heart, still fighting the good fight in her little public defender office. I raised my glass in his direction, smiling. In less than 48 hours, his world would implode. And I would be there to watch it happen. The prison visiting room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Ethan sat across from me, his orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the gray walls. 3 years into his 5-year sentence, he looked different, smaller, less sure of himself. The beard suited him, though. "You cut your hair," he said, breaking the ice. "You grew a beard," I replied, gesturing to his face. "It works." He chuckled, but it was hollow. "Not much choice in here." We sat for a moment, the weight of unsaid words hanging between us. Finally, he spoke again. "Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "Your letter was convincing," I admitted. He nodded, glancing around the room where other inmates sat with their families. "Mom finally stopped sending money to my commissary account." "I know. She called me about it." His eyebrows shot up. "You two are talking again?" "We had lunch last week," I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. She admitted she might have been wrong about a few things. Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Is it true what I heard about Julian Thompson?" 15 years. 17, I corrected. "Turns out he was running schemes with half a dozen other clients. Your cooperation helped bring that to light." He let out a bitter laugh. He caught himself, shaking his head. "Sorry. I'm trying to be better about everything. The prison therapist, Dr. Chun, she's helping." I nodded. "She's the one who suggested you reach out to me, right?" "Yeah," he said, his voice softer now. "She said I needed to stop blaming others for my choices." A guard walked past, and we fell silent until he was out of earshot. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing as if he were trying to piece something together. "I saw your name in the paper," he said. "That big civil rights case you won. You're following my cases, huh?" "Everyone I can find," I replied. He smiled weakly. "Turns out the prison library gets all the major papers. I've become quite the legal scholar." "Better late than never," I said, and for the first time, he didn't flinch at the jab. "Yeah," he murmured, rubbing his face. "Listen, I've been practicing what to say to you for months. Can I just—" I nodded, giving him the space to speak. "I was jealous," he said simply. "Not just of your success, but of your integrity. You knew who you were, what you stood for. I was so busy trying to look successful that I forgot to actually be good at anything real." He held up a hand before I could interrupt. "What I did was wrong, not just the fraud, but how I treated you. All those years of putting you down, making you feel small. I did it because I felt small. And I'm sorry." The words hung between us, heavy with decades of history. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Instead, I shifted the conversation. "Sophia got remarried." I told him. "I know," he said, his smile genuine for the first time. "To that kindergarten teacher. Good for her. She deserves to be happy." A bell rang, signaling the end of visiting hours. Ethan stood quickly, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Before you go," he said, handing it to me, "I made this in the wood shop here." I unfolded the paper to find a carefully drawn blueprint for a bicycle, the same model I'd learned to ride on after he'd pushed me off all those years ago. "Thought maybe," he hesitated, "when I get out, I could build one for your kid." I stared at him, stunned. "How did you know?" "Mom mentioned you've been sick in the mornings," he said with a shrug. "I can do math. I haven't told anyone at work yet." "Your secret's safe with me," I said, tucking the blueprint into my bag. He stood as the guard approached. "For what it's worth," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "you're going to be an amazing mother. You always were better at taking care of people than I was." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I changed the subject. "You know they have a law library here, right?" "Yeah," he said, his face lighting up. "Why?" "Could always use some pro bono help with research," I said. "If you're interested." His eyes widened. "Really? You said you're following my cases," I replied with a small smile. "Might as well make yourself useful." The guard cleared his throat. "Time's up." Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "Thank you," he said. for coming, for listening, for everything. That's what big sisters do, I said, standing to leave. No, he said seriously. That's what good people do. I'm just sorry it took me so long to see that. As I gathered my things, he called after me. Hey, Olivia? Yeah. When the baby comes, he said, his voice trembling. Will you tell them about me? I turned back to face him. I'll tell them their uncle is learning to be brave enough to face the truth. That sometimes the hardest victories are the ones we win over ourselves. He smiled, a real smile this time. Still talking like a lawyer. Still your sister, I replied. Walking out of the prison, I placed a hand on my stomach, thinking about cycles breaking and new beginnings. My phone buzzed, Cameron, reminding me about tomorrow's deposition. The world of justice and consequences continued turning, but something had shifted. Like a broken bone finally setting right, it wasn't forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Sometimes, that's enough of a victory to build a future on. I took one last look at the prison before getting in my car. The blueprint in my bag felt like a promise, not of perfection, but of possibility. Sometimes, that's all any of us can ask for. That and the courage to keep pedaling forward no matter how many times we fall.